All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Floyd Mayweather Jr. talks about Deontay Wilder and says he can beat Tyson Fury. And Floyd Mayweather Jr. can train him on how to do it. I know that might come as a huge shock to some of you guys out there in the UK, but not everybody is writing Deontay Wilder off, and nor should he be written off. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, got up this morning, getting ready for a great day of fights. Actually looking forward to seeing Dillian White fight later today against Alexander Povetkin. Looking forward to seeing Katie Taylor fight, I think her name is Pearson, the lady who many people thought beat Katie Taylor. But in looking up and trying to find the way in, I run into a series of articles again, from the UK. And one of the articles that were out there was about Floyd Mayweather Jr. saying that he could train Deontay Wilder to beat Tyson Fury. And that yes, Deontay Wilder does have the ability to win the third fight. Now, that if you were to read the articles coming out of the UK, you would think that that is the most ridiculous proposition in the history of boxing. But first, we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk specifically about Floyd Mayweather Jr. and whether Floyd Mayweather Jr. would actually be willing to or be helpful in training Deontay Wilder. But before we get to that particular portion of it, just reading these people, the way that you guys, and here I'm going to talk as a boxing fan, two boxing fans, the way you guys talk about Deontay Wilder is just, it's so overcooked, so over the top, man. I really wish you guys would be more respectful to the sport of boxing than you are. It's like at this point in time, it's, beyond just saying, wow, you guys are ridiculous. And I don't understand how you can see and not, how you, at this point it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just, since he lost to Tyson Fury, it's just way, way, way over the top. Okay. You got people saying that Deontay Wilder is a terrible fighter. What a terrible fighter, right? Now, how I know that in the world that we live in, that results don't matter to everybody, but it's just a real hard pitch to say that a guy that is 40-0, that got to 40 wins and or a guy that has over 40 knockouts, successfully defended a title 10 times, or had 10 successful title defenses, or was he going for his 10th successful title defenses? At least 9 successful title defenses in a row. Gets an Olympic bronze medal, but the guy just cannot fight. Well, if a guy like that could accomplish that much and not be able to fight, that tells you that pretty much nobody at boxing knows how to fight, except for maybe one or two guys maybe one or two guys in the heavyweight division. So it is not surprising that a guy like that, many experts like Buddy McGirt, like George Foreman, Floyd Mayweather Jr. have all said that they could train. Yeah, they could just make a couple adjustments for Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder will have the ability to beat Tyson Fury in the third fight. Now, if someone like Nigel Benn, I think it was Nigel Benn, that said how terrible, he's the worst fighter ever in the history of mankind. Nigel Benn. Good fighter, Nigel Benn. Good fighter. Deontay Wilder level of accomplishments? Nah, not really. I think he held on to the WBA. He did have some title defenses at super middleweight. He did maybe 5 or 6 of them before he got knocked out. Yeah, 5 or 6 of them before he got knocked out by Chris Eubank. I think he got knocked out by Chris Eubank. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he got beat, if not stopped, by Chris Eubank Sr. But, hey man, his career is not total garbage. He got beat, lost his belt. He's not the worst fighter ever. But Deontay Wilder fights, loses his belt, and all of a sudden he's the worst fighter in ever. It's just, you guys are like really over the top. So Floyd Mayweather Jr. says, because Floyd Mayweather Jr. has sense. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has an excellent boxing mind. Says, hey man, he can beat Tyson Fury, and I can show him how. Now, do you believe that is true or not? I believe that it's true. I absolutely positively believe that a guy like Floyd Mayweather Jr., if he was in the body of a guy that was 6'7" and with all that power like Deontay Wilder, he could find a way to beat Tyson Fury. Why? Because Tyson Fury is not the greatest fighter in the history of mankind. Tyson Fury is a very solid fighter. And I don't want to diminish Tyson Fury or act as if he's not a very good fighter, because I do believe he's a very good fighter. He was on ESPN, and what was the name of the guy that I'm not sure the name of the guy that asked him the question, but he pretty much went in on Tyson Fury in a kind of canned way and said, hey, you fought a bunch of tomato cans. I'm not impressed. And Tyson Fury's like, man, my record stands for itself, whatever. But when he said it, I thought to myself, yeah, it is, isn't it? if like what Nigel Benn said and what a lot of people say over there in the UK, if what you guys are saying is true, then yeah, Tyson Fury's resume is full of a bunch of tomato cans. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because you think Deontay Wilder's a tomato can. If Deontay Wilder's a tomato can, that means Tyson Fury has wins over tomato cans. So how can Tyson Fury get any credit for that, right? By the admission of people who are Tyson Fury fans. So that leaves who for Tyson Fury to point to? Vladimir Klitschko. Vladimir Klitschko, who he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs for in the fight before that. And a Vladimir Klitschko who had already been knocked out several times in his career and was, if not already over 40, was right around 40 years old at the time, well past his prime. But that's one guy. So you got one guy on your resume, and then nobody else has anybody on their resume, because Anthony Joshua certainly doesn't have anybody on their resume. If Deontay Wilder with 40 wins and a WBC title for 5 years and 10 title defenses, if he's not a good enough fighter to be counted, if he's a bum, what do you think Dillian White is? Dillian White got knocked out by Anthony Joshua. You know what I'm saying? Anthony, so by the virtue of being knocked out by Anthony Joshua, who got knocked out by Andy Ruiz? Who is Dillian White? Who is Anthony Joshua? Nobody. They're all bums. See, when you make Deontay Wilder a bum in the heavyweight division, you make everybody else a bum in the heavyweight division. So therefore, what the guy said about Tyson Fury is true, and Tyson Fury is not that great a fighter. So if that's the consensus, because that's the logic, why wouldn't Floyd Mayweather Jr., Buddy McGirt, and Mike Tyson and those guys believe that they could train Deontay Wilder to fight Tyson Fury and beat Tyson Fury? Because Tyson Fury ain't ever beat anybody. And to boot, I tend to believe, and this is me speaking as a fan, that most people in boxing are not dumb. And that when so much information comes out about Tyson Fury cheating, and so many people believing it, and it quite honestly being, quite honest, it was pretty obvious that he did in both of those fights. Maybe somebody could say, oh yeah, man, we just correct these things. Yeah, we can beat this dude. And Deontay Wilder dang near knocked him out the first fight, which is something for some reason people keep skipping over. But Deontay Wilder already put him flat on his back once. You don't think he could ever put him flat on his back again? That doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so yeah, Floyd Mayweather Jr. would be very good at training him, I do believe. And also, but I don't And I wouldn't be surprised if he went down there and Deontay Wilder was not open to hearing what he had to say. You know? Because I'm sure that, there's a significant chance I would not write out or I wouldn't just write off the fact that maybe Deontay Wilder would bring other people in. In fact, I think I heard he would bring other people in. And he did talk to George Foreman, had a conversation with George Foreman. I think it'd be a good thing. But anyway, that's my thought on the matter. You let me know what you think. Would Floyd Mayweather Jr. actually help Deontay Wilder? Do you think that it would affect the outcome of the fight, the next fight? Let me know in the comment section. And with that amount, peace.